Also from Muslim family. Okay, then the Muslim families needs to be worked on. Why did you let your boys and girls into drugs? Because you are not being very good parents. Because there is in Islam, or even in an Asian family, or even here, as a parent, you have the responsibility for your children and their well-being. So if they're going to drugs, why? Because it's a failure from parents, failure from the school, failure from their cultural environment. That's the problem. Don't make it into an Islamic one. Don't make it into a Muslim problem. Okay? That will be my issue. So Islam, yes, Islam provides solutions to these problems by saying what? Prevention is better than cure. If you stop, look, prevention is better than cure. If you did not have all these opiums and drugs available, and you make it available because it's a good business, then people won't be going into drug and drug consumption, would they? Imagine there's no drugs.
I just want to ask one question about the drugs issue, because I'm fascinated by it. And it's this. Do you understand why there are drugs?
Which drugs?
Any drugs. Heroin, cocaine, whatever you like. Do you understand? Just answer my question.
I am.
Do you understand
Brother,
why?
I'm a pharmacist.
Do you understand why they're there?
To answer your question,
Yeah.
drugs in a layman terms is understood to be illicit drugs. I'm not talking about drugs which are used in medicine, whether in veterinary medicine or in normal medicine.
I want to, the question I've always asked myself is, why are there so many, let's call them illegal drugs to round it all up? And the simple answer is, there's a demand. There's a demand. I would promise you that if somebody came up with some sort of solution that wiped every illicit drug off the face of the planet tonight, by the 24 hours time, somebody would be making it out of something else.
Yeah, I want that man dead as well.
It's an innate condition.
It's not an innate condition.
It is. It is. Why would it have ever... Imagine, you're out in the jungle and there's a piece of rotting fruit and you pick it up, you slug it down and it tastes absolutely disgusting. Anybody that's drunk whiskey would vouch for that. And yet, we come back for more. Not you, but an awful lot of us do.
Okay, let me tell you. So since you asked me the question, let me tell you my point. Many of these illicit drugs actually were used in medicinal purposes. But when people realize you get a high from this, that's why they started getting abused. Now, which people are using or abusing them?
Everybody is. Not everybody, I'm generalising.
The people...
But there's an awful lot more. There's a lot of people here who won't put their hands up and go, oh, it was me.
The reason why they're abused, there are people out there, they have taken their own desires as their God. Because they want to be happy for whatever it takes. It doesn't matter if it means to steal, if it means to kill.
There is not a society in this world that does not have some sort of illegal stimulant.
If you allow me to answer your question. So the people who do this, they're trying to make themselves happy whatever it takes. Now, these people who want to do that, of course, they have misunderstood the whole thing of self-restraint, self-control, and being responsible. Being responsible means that even if it's your... Imagine now.
I take drugs, I'm responsible.
Look, imagine a man...
Anybody else take drugs?
Excuse me.
Anybody honest enough to own up to taking drugs?
Do you want me to continue answering your question, or
he takes them?
Right.
Right.
Imagine a man sees a beautiful woman, right?
Yep.
Now the man has some feeling to go and rape this woman. Should this man go and fulfill his need?
Which man are we talking about?
I'm asking a hypothetical question.
Let me just put this to you.
No. I want you to reflect on that. If you find a man who feels that, oh, I want this woman, I want this girl.
Yes.
And he chases her and finds her in a corner and rapes her because he thinks he's going to get away with it. Now, should he not have prevented his feeling, restrained his feeling?
Perhaps he can't.
Perhaps he can't? Then basically, so now, here's the problem.
It's like somebody who takes drugs. Now, I don't know whether there are any drug smokers or takers here, but here's a fact, that I can take a drug and then I can leave it. He might take it and maybe he can't. Now maybe that's something physical in us.
Physical in us?
Yeah, physical in us.
Okay, so someone...
So there's an innate desire amongst mankind.
No, who says there was no desire? I am saying when there is a desire, are you suggesting...
It wouldn't be here.
You know...
We wouldn't have drug dealers, we would not have drugs
engaging...
if people didn't want them.
My friend, when people have desires to rape another woman, should this desire be curbed? Or are you saying there are some people out there, we can't blame them because they cannot control themselves?
How many men here want to go along?
No, answer that question, please.
How many men?
Excuse me, answer the question. Are you saying those people who feel they cannot control themselves and they go and rape women, it's part of their natural makeup, we can't do anything, they shouldn't be...
I don't know what their motivation is.
Not about motive. You just said it's something, it's in their makeup, natural makeup, they cannot control.
I did not say that.
That's what you just said. You just did. Would you like to explain that to a woman? Go ahead.
When a woman got into a corner and you
Are we talking drugs or rape now?
Desires. Desires. We say, look, in Islam, Islam considers human beings have desires because God created human beings with desires. But the difference is Islam gave a boundary to live by while having those desires.
So no,
and Islam gave the means and the resources to fulfill those desires within the boundary.
Right.
It is easy to do. Is it practical to do? And also legislated laws and regulations for those who go beyond the boundary, so that society is protected, society is safe and secure. You are simply saying
it isn't.
Look,
those laws aren't working, are they?
The laws were
because those people wouldn't be committing those crimes.
Let me give you an example from Islamic society when it worked. Today, it's not working because, unfortunately, I cannot show you an Islamic society today because most of them were ex-colonial countries by Britain, France, or many others.
So it's somebody else's fault.
Excuse me. I'm not saying it's someone else's fault. I am saying in countries that where Muslims are living, previously they have been colonized already. What do the colonialists do? The colonialists, when they do go there, they don't just go there and say, I know, nice meeting you and bye-bye. They implement their system, their culture, their laws and their regulations. So whether you're being very, you're being very, minimalist in understanding. I am saying it's a multifactorial reasons why there's a problem. And part of the problem that we've inherited in our Muslim lands is colonialism. When the colonial masters left, they left with an education system that was bankrupt and totally unsuitable for an Islamic society. When they left with a social system in which there was still the problem. So,
I'm just going to ask a simple question.
So
before they arrived,
why
what
don't
was
you,
happening before they arrived?
Right, before they arrived. So let's go back when Islam was implemented. How many cases of rape, stealing, highway robbery, how many cases?
How are we going to know?
By looking at historical reports.
How far back do you go then?
Go back when Islam implemented the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From there, look at few hundred years after that. Look at blocks of centuries. When Islam was implemented, do you know, my friend? Do you know? Just to give an example.
Another question I want
Before you, I want you to engage rather than think ahead with the question. When Islam was implemented in some Muslim countries, at that time there were no security cameras, CCTV cameras. There weren't any. There weren't these electrical shutters. What there were, people were shops open, like in a table or something, and they were during the time of Salah prayer, like 5 times a prayer, midday, around, afternoon time and so on, right? Daytime. I want to go at night time. When they heard the call of prayer, they would just simply lay a cloth over the table, merchandise, leave their shops, doesn't matter how expensive it is, and then go to the mosque and pray and come back. Now, how was it possible? Do you think it's possible in this country to do that today?
That isn't my question.
No, I want you to think on this. How in an Islamic society at one point it was possible?
And now?
Wait.
In what
I want you
society now,
I want you
is
to
it possible?
compare and reflect. Why was it possible then, and why is it
Telling me
impossible
was
now?
Possible then. You have no evidence that it's
Oh, we
possible
have
then.
historical
No,
reports.
you don't. I'm sorry.
I've been to
So-
Mecca and Medina,
I'm sorry.
I'm still there today.
outside on the street.
Where you're from, and think on this as a simple example. That's all I'm asking. Is that you have your Islam, and I have my Christianity, let's say, and we're going back to the dawn of time, right? And we meet, and you and I are very affable. We understand each other, and you tell me that you follow Islam, and I tell you I follow God or whatever. And we go back to our communities. We're quite happy. We get on with each other. We go back. You go back, and I tell my people, guess what? I've seen this really lovely guy. He believes in Islam. I don't quite know what it is, and you go back. And you say, oh, I've met some guys and they, I don't know, they follow some sort of God. If we had tolerance at that point, none of this would have got any further. But somebody, not you, not me, somebody in our tribe, we think we're going right back to the very dawn of time, somebody in my tribe goes, those bastards, they should believe what we believe. Now, that is an innate situation. This is not learned. You can't learn it if it was never there. You know, people say, oh, racism is learned. Well, who was the first guy who started it?
Okay.
And
So
where did he get it
So
from
let
if he
me
never
let me
learned it?
address what you just said. I would like you to listen carefully to the
carefully.
response,
I'm
right?
listening
Thank you,
carefully.
as you always are. So you said, go back in the old times, the dawn of time, when Muslims and Christians were living together, and only there will be some guys who think otherwise. But if you were to consider Islam,
Yes.
the teaching of Islam,
Yeah.
you would have realized what you so much want and desire is what is the teaching of Islam in the first
But
place.
didn't Islam split?
You are already interrupting without listening.
But didn't Islam split?
You see, you're already interrupting without listening. I've just started to explain to you the phenomenon of Islam. Islamic teaching is that if you don't want to become a Muslim, you can remain what you are and practice in your own sphere. That is why in Syria, not today, back in old time, or in Lebanon, or in Egypt, I'll give you some examples, right? Where Muslims and Christians were living side by side,
Absolutely.
practicing their religion side by side. So Islam had no issues with other people. Islam had no issues with tolerating each other.
But they
Islam
did.
is no, they did not. The problem starts in your denial
No, you're
of
denying.
history and historical reality. Now tell me, in Egypt,
Yes.
why do we still find in Egypt hundreds and thousands of Christians still living today with the Muslims, with their ancestral line going back all the way to the dawn of time of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if there was no tolerance shown to them?
But somewhere,
Stick with Egypt.
somewhere, we can stay with wherever you like.
Stick with Egypt.
Somewhere.
Thank you.
Somewhere there was intolerance.
When?
There had to
When?
be.
When?
Well, wherever.
No, don't say whenever. When?
Why did the Islamic religion split into different?
You're not answering the question.
Well, there's your
Even if
answer.
Islam splits into Sunnah,
If the Sufi and the Sunni were tolerant of each other,
not
why
Sunni.
Why do they kick the
don't have
seven
an issue about it.
okay, brother,
you
one
don't,
moment.
But not you personally, but some do, don't they?
Again, in Egypt in particular, whether you're Sunni or a Sufi or a Shia, the fact remains in history that Christians and the Jewish people, at one point, they were living side by side. Why? How did they do that if they were intolerant?
Well, where is the intolerance sprung from?
You see, you're very difficult to engage with.
question.
I asked you, you claim,
Are we tolerant now?
you
Are we tolerant now?
Look, the discussion is
Are we,
what
no,
about,
are we tolerant now
my
of
friend,
each other?
my friend,
Are we tolerant?
if you are listening carefully,
Yes.
you would have noticed that Muslims have inherited non-Islam within their societies. So they are not being judged and ruled by, governed by the Islamic principles in totality. That is why there is intolerance even in our Muslim societies today. So Today we have a problem. I am saying when Islam was implemented in its entirety, hear my words carefully.
Yes.
Why was it that there were tolerance?
They weren't.
In which
We
period?
wouldn't be here
In
today having this
hang on.
discussion.
In which period
if
they were
tolerant-
intolerant?
It doesn't matter which period you start. It had to have started somewhere. You can't
You know
say.
what? I'll tell you when it
sorry,
started.
You can't say, oh look, in 1950 everything was fine. In 1951 it wasn't.
Okay.
Right? Because
may
something.
I suggest one thing or ask one thing?
Yeah, go on.
Have you read any of the histories of civilization in Egypt and Syria, Islamic civilization in Spain?
Yes.
Right. Tell me about Islamic
Intolerance in all the
Tell me
way
about
through.
Islamic civilization in Spain.
There were slaves in Egypt, were there not? Were there slaves in Egypt?
Tell me about
Oh, sorry.
intolerance between
Let's-
Islam, Muslims and Christians.
Oh, hold on. Let's keep to Egypt.
No.
Let's keep with Egypt.
Tell me about-
Now you started
No,
with Egypt.
tell me about
Tell me about
intolerance
Egypt. Were there
between
were there slaves
Muslims.
in Egypt?
Am I talking about bananas?
No, are you talking
Good.
about
I'm talking about Muslims and Christians
Yeah,
in particular.
exactly.
In Egypt.
In Egypt.
In Egypt, at what period there were intolerance?
were there slaves in this in this
I am
society?
talking about-
Were there slaves?
People, Muslims and Christians, whether it was a Muslim slave or a Christian slave, this is not a distinction. Faith as a distinction. When, are you listening? When you identify yourself,
How can you tell me that any society that enslaves another society?
you're moving
It's
your
been-
goalposts
I'm
from
not moving
one
my
to the other.
goalposts.
Now we're talking about slavery.
No, we're
Listen.
not talking about slavery. We're still talking about tolerance.
We're talking about
We're
tolerance
still
between
talking
other
about
faiths.
tolerance.
Other faiths.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Within the Muslim faith,
Slaves, right? Good,
Let's
slaves.
assume.
Now, in which period Muslims were intolerant to Christian slaves?
doesn't matter which period. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Have a good day.
There just isn't any tolerance in the world.